You're watching The Experience Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So I was trying to clean up my office some. Move some things around, try to make more room. Ever since I took up crocheting, I now have a bunch of yarn in here. I got all the boxes for the guys up there. Those take up space. I got comics everywhere. They sent me comps of Karma. I got those stacked around here. I mean, it just gets pretty cluttered, and you start moving things around, and you start finding things that you don't expect to find, like, oh, there's a bill I should have paid 6 months ago. And, I don't remember reading this comic and stuff like that. And I've come to expect those kind of things. I'm kind of used to those kind of things now. Because, I have one of those lifestyles where it's the immediate happens or gets forgotten. It's like when a bill comes in or a letter comes in or a comic comes in. If I don't look at it and do something with it right away, it's going to be put off to the side and it's likely to get buried and disappear. Which you would think wouldn't, sure, that could be a problem bill-wise and stuff like that. But with comic-wise and stuff, eventually you find them and eventually you read them. So it's not that big a deal. But there was some things I was supposed to read and they got into a pile and they got moved around. And now it's like 6 months later. And I just found them today. And I was thinking, well, this can't be that big a deal. But then I realized they're classified. So now I got to call the lawyers. Does everybody just have classified documents sitting around their house they forget about? Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. It is January 25th, and we're going to have a fun show today because it might involve some of that wild-ass speculation stuff that JD does love using that graphic for. So, but we'll see if we get to that and just how much we get. So, red and yellow t-shirt time. That's not a bad idea. We've been coming up with t-shirts and stuff to go with it. And I don't have one yet. So Wikimaniacs could be a good one. Have to keep that in mind. Run that by Kyle. I thought about just using the big, the cartoony picture of me running through the hills, but that's not a bad one at all, man. So hello, Cool. Good to see you. Triple B. Nice to see you, Ed. Glad you're here. Ed says it kind of makes you wonder about the government's meaning of classified homework. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if they hand you something to read and you like, look, I got to take this home. I mean, how many books do you guys have on the side of your bed that you've been meaning to read? I mean, is that what it is? Is that where they're all stacked up next to Mike Pence's side table and stuff like that? I mean, I still have half of the Marvel Studios book that came out. That 2-book set that came out, a year or so back, that talks about the first 10 years of Marvel Studios. I read that first one just religiously, dug into it, started just devouring it. And I finished it, put it back in the slipcase, have not started the second one since. And it's not that I don't want to read it. It's absolutely awesome. I love it. But I am so much a Audible reader and Audible listener over reading now that I almost want to buy a copy. If there's an Audible version of it, buy that so I can listen to it. and just keep the book for the pictures. But it says, yes, but I don't think my comics are classified, though. Actually, having seen some of the people that we call senators and congressmen now, might be better off making up comics. They might actually understand them better. The pictures to go with the words. Just saying, there's definitely not an IQ test on the application form to put your name in for the ballot. Nor does there appear to be like a test for truth, I try not to get into politics here, but that guy Santos, I mean, I don't care which political party is your gig. The guy lied. His lies are so bizarre. The fact that he lied about being a star on a volleyball team for a college he didn't even go to. I mean, really? His lies are they're not even good lies. Not even impressive lies. They're just kind of, So, all right, let's cover the news. We got 2 news stories to get to. The first one here is has to be an update on Jeremy Renner. Let me catch up real quick. Ed says, the only party I belong to is the beer and taco party. Now, see, I don't like tacos that much, so we be opposing on that, Ed. I'm not even a beer fan that much. I prefer straight scotch and a good burger, or a steak and scotch. I'm in the steak and scotch party. Yeah. All right. Let's do the Jeremy Renner news. I guess the police report has come out, and CNN got a copy of it, and we've got a label. Nice. Pop culture news. Okay. PCN Network. So CNN got a hold of it, and it says that Renner was driving a piston bully, a snowplow. Dan is high maintenance. Yeah, pretty much. In an attempt to pull his nephew's truck out of the snow. So he got out his piston bully or his snowplow, snowcat, to get his nephew's truck out of the snow. And he had pulled it out and got out to talk to his nephew. And before he realized it, it started sliding. And it was actually sliding towards his nephew. And Renner was worried that it would actually hit him. So he tried to jump back up inside and get the brake on and all that. Well, as soon as he tried to jump in, he got pulled under and crushed by the left side track. Now, although the piston bully had some mechanical issues, it is believed based on a mechanical inspection that the parking brake would have kept the piston bully from moving. So he hadn't locked the parking brake in. Now, there's no, it's not believed any impairment was involved. So he wasn't drinking or anything like that. And now according to his own posts, the one the other day where we see him, stretching and working physical therapy, he has over 30 broken bones. Man, that guy, it's going to be a while before he's back up and running, and if running at all. I mean, that's the thing is, there's been a lot of wild rumors out there that don't seem to be true. Threats to him losing his leg and stuff like that. And it doesn't appear to be. His legs aren't even bandaged in the pictures we've seen. So I think it's just broken bones and pins resetting and stuff like that. Most of the damage is probably to his chest. So we'll have to see how well he recovers, how long it takes. But I do love Chris Evans' comment, because tragedy plus time equals comedy. And Chris Evans seems to have already waited just the right amount of time, because he responded to the picture of him, of Renner exercising and doing physical therapy with the thing, damn, that is one tough mother effer. Has anybody checked on the snowplow? Like perhaps the snowplow got the worst of running over Jeremy Renner. So I thought that was a really funny comeback. And it's good to start getting the humor. So when we see the humor, you get the idea, because if anybody knows what's going on, it's his fellow actors and stuff in the MCU, or at least have an understanding. So the fact that we got a humor moment and Renner responded to it, to me, makes it seem like we're going in the right direction to getting him back up and running and all that. So, oh, JD says we've all done that though, just not with a huge hulking machine. I have a very large truck, but no, I've always put my parking. You know who did it? My brother. My brother was sleeping one night and gets a call from a neighbor who says, you're going to want to come outside. My brother's like, what? Why? It's 4 a.m. He goes, you're going to want to see this. My brother lived at the top of the street, oddly enough, the same street that we live on. So he used to live at the very top of the street. He rented a house up there, and he owned a motorhome. And somehow the motorhome's parking brake was either not set or released. And in the middle of the night, it just started rolling. Not fast and not terribly far. It went probably 4 or 5 house lengths. But in doing so, it then ran into somebody's car and stopped. But yeah, so his motorhome got away and just started driving down the street on its own. So yeah, it happens. Ed says, I flipped a Bobcat once. Luckily, I was strapped in, not a bruise. Good. Now, biggest accident I ever had was driving on the freeway. I was about to go up to a convention in San Jose. I was driving over to pick up an artist friend of mine named Tone Rodriguez. And it was really super weird weather down here. We'd have just downpouring rain, and then suddenly it would be sunny, and you'd go about a mile or two and it'd be raining again. So as we're going down, I'm driving along and I got distracted. I was doing something with the temperature control, looked down for a second to do it, looked up, and the traffic was suddenly stopped. And I tried to hit the brakes. I ended up in the back of somebody's Nissan Altima, as in my car went, or my truck went into the back of the Nissan Altima. And then he hit another car and his car went, so we had to pry him out. But when I got out of the truck, I shut the engine off because it was still running. So everything happens and he was okay. He got in, they took him to the hospital anyway, but he was okay overall. His car was not. But they were going to bring over the tow truck to try to pull my truck out of the guy's car. And I told him, I said, I don't think we need to do that. He's like, what do you mean? I said, my engine was running when I stopped. I said, I think I can get back in, start it up, and back out of the guy's car. They're like, there's no way. I said, no, I really think I can. So I get over there, I get back in my truck, and I start it up, and I pop it into reverse and give it some gas, and boom, I drive out of the back of the guy's truck, pull over to the side of the road, and the only thing I have to do is that my front bumper, or my front fender and bumper, is pushed in towards the tires. I can't really drive on it. But the tow truck guy grabs a crowbar, pries the thing out and goes, "All right, take it to your shop." So, Ford trucks, man. All right, let me see what I missed. Ed says, "Did you hear Lance Kerwin died last night? He was mostly known as the kid who inspired David Soul, Kill the Vampires, and TV miniseries Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot's the best vampire movie I ever seen." I didn't know him from Salem's Lot, but the show I knew him from was James at 15, which I believe was based on the true story of Michael Landon, if that's what it was. But it was an interesting story. I remember watching that as a kid. It was something we would watch regularly. Was James at 15, and I think the second season was actually called James at 16. But I don't think it went long. But I remembered him. I saw his face on the news, and I'm like, I know who that kid is. So, but yeah, he was 62. We don't know how he died yet. It hasn't been reported. But his daughter is the one that made the announcement. So, yeah. JD says that's a great story. You can tell the cops' car hit the house. Who's going to believe the house moved? All right. Okay, we got some other news here. In this news, I thought of Ed immediately. This is right up there with Ed. This is for Ed, if he hasn't seen the news. And that is, with the second season of Legend of Vox Machina going on Amazon Prime right now, it was announced today that Critical Role has signed a exclusive multi-year deal for overall television and first look film deal. So basically, they're basically they're going to produce more stuff. So it'll be more than just Legend of Vox Machina. They're going to expand, and the first thing they're expanding to is a second animated series based on the Mighty Nine. Now, if you're not familiar with the Mighty Nine, it follows a group of criminals and misfits who are the only ones that can prevent the kingdom from plunging into chaos when an arcane artifact capable of reshaping reality falls into the wrong hands. Now, the Mighty Nine was the second season of Critical Role. The first one was Vox Machina, and that was their characters and stuff like that. So the second one is when they started over. Now, they're currently in a third campaign. And I was listening and watching the third campaign, and I just kind of strayed because it's hard to sit down for a few hours at a time and watch something on every Thursday night. But they are a blast. And I Mighty Nine is probably the one I watched the most. I watched The Search for Grog, which is, if you want to go back for Vox Machina and you don't watch Critical Role, but you've watched the animated series, I recommend looking up Critical Role, The Search for Grog. And that's a special one-shot they did live in front of an audience in a theater at a convention. And it's so much fun and just so enjoyable watching them that you really get into it. And then you get into the concept of them doing this show in the studio and stuff. From there, they went to, they had started Mighty Nine at the same time. So instead of going back and watching all the old episodes of Vox Machina, which goes all the way back to the Geek and Sundry days, I just started with Mighty Nine, and I watched a bunch of those episodes. And there are a lot of great characters there, and they all switch up. So, like Sam Riegel is Scanlan in one, and in the next one, he plays Not, a little gremlin woman. Or Vex, Liam O'Brien, he's the elf in the first one, the elf thief in the first one. In the second one, he's a fire mage, and it's really good. And they switch around, and then of course Matt Mercer's doing all the other voices. But Travis Willingham said where he plays Grog in the first one, he's a paladin in the, well, he's a couple different things in the second one. It kind of changes as it goes. But Travis said, and Travis is the actual co-founder and the CEO of Critical Role. Did not know that part. But he says, Critical Role's live stream campaigns are the spark that lit the flame of our worldwide audience. Seeing the stories and the characters from our first campaign come to life in The Legend of Vox Machina was a dream realized. We are absolutely buzzing with excitement to do it again with the Mighty Nine. But with today's announcement, we're confident that the stories we tell will keep expanding into realms of entertainment beyond what we can even imagine. So I think this is a lot of possibility for not only stories about the Mighty Nine, or even this new group. I don't even know what the name of the new group is. They find the names organically, but so it seems like we will expand, but also they can expand into other things. There's other role players out there. There's other live play games that they could tap into. They could take some of the characters and spin them off on their own, do something with them. They could also get outside of animation. They could go live action. They could go into film, like movies. They could do an animated movie, a live action movie. There's a lot of possibilities. And all of these people, they're voice actors, but they also have some acting credits to their name. So they could do that. But they also tap into a lot of great actors and stuff that come in guest spots. So I think this has a huge amount of potential. And Amazon was smart to lock these guys up. I mean, they did a Kickstarter to launch the first Vox Machina, and it was the highest grossing Kickstarter ever. I mean, just hands down, it beat MST 3000 when they brought that back with Felicia Day and Patton Oswalt. So Critical Role seems to keep rolling, even with all the other news about D&D lately, with the licensing agreement that was causing a lot of people problems. It's like, let's put that aside for now, and that seems to be working itself out, and rejoice at the idea that we're going to get more of Critical Role. So, okay, it says, as a longtime D&D fan, I've never said this before, but I love the Bard on Vox Machina. Scanlan is awesome. My first character, I've only been playing D&D for about 4 or 5 years now. I didn't play I think I played once when I was younger. I think I played the Marvel game once when I was younger, the Marvel role-playing game. I didn't get into role-playing game because I didn't have a group to play with. But I got into playing it a few years ago thanks to some comic friends of mine who started a game, and I ended up in. And my first character was a bard. And just absolutely loved playing the character. Would love to go back to it. Like all D&D groups that eventually just kind of fell apart. But this one's going to be unique because the guy who put it together and was the game master was Matt Hawkins from over at Top Cow. And I know he's got a deal where he's actually writing a D&D based fantasy comic series, and our characters from our campaign are going to be part of it. Now, I don't think they're going to be main characters, but my bard was going to live on in comic pages from what I understand. Or at least that was the last I heard. So I've even seen a drawing of him, and he looks awesome, which is very cool. So, all right, let's go ahead and we'll take our first break. And when we come back, we will talk about Jason Momoa. Be right back.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We have a really good lineup today. After this is going to be Comics Collectibles with Rex and John and AR Comics. And they've got some really good books. I got a chance to see some of them. There's some Dynamite Virgin covers from Dynamite, including the new Green Hornet, One Night in Bangkok. There's a Moratat cover of Lord of the Jungle. And then also there's some really good DC covers. There's a J. Scott Campbell cover with Batman and Batgirl on it. I even saw a neat Comic Exposure exclusive Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 800 cover by Gabriel Del Lotto that is real neat. It's a nice big wraparound cover. So you're going to want to check that out. That's right after this. After that, we have Pop Go the Writers and Wednesday Warriors. That might be flipped. And Kicking It with Henri tonight. So we got a full lineup. I saw the question by Mark about Justin Roiland and what's going on with him. I don't know much yet. It's still coming out what's going to happen, but both Adult Swim and now Hulu have cut ties with Roiland, who's the co-creator of Rick and Morty, or is he the sole creator of Rick and Morty? But he's the co-creator of that's right. He's the creator of Rick and Morty. He's the co-creator of Solar Opposites. Now they've cut ties with him. Can the show continue on without him? That's the big question. I don't know. Rick and Morty is hugely popular. Without him, can the show survive if he's not connected? I think there's a good chance that whatever season is on, that'll be the last of it for Comedy Central, for Adult Swim. Will it get picked up by somebody else, just like Solar Opposites, or will they just pull the plug? I don't know. I honestly don't, because we live in a very weird society right now where sometimes the simplest things get people banned. They're just gone. And other times it seems like would get them gone, and someone comes along and gives him a lifeline, and or if he steps away from it and sells the rights to let it keep going, that might be an option, that he just sells them away. And will this affect the comic too? Let's see, who publishes the comic? Oni publishes the comic. I don't think it's clear yet. I think it's possible that it's going to, but we haven't gotten any definitive terms. So, I mean, I can look at the story up now about Hulu. I can tell you guys, it says that Hulu has actually said, we have ended our association with Justin Roiland. According to the statement, Solar Opposite and Koala Man are expected to continue without Roiland's involvement. So that's how Hulu's handling it. Adult Swim, the show's been renewed for through season 10, with having 6 seasons completed. Yeah. So the show was actually created with Dan Harmon, so it is a co-creation there. But Roiland will be recast. So as of now, he is being taken away, but the shows are still going forward. So from NBC News, Roiland, who voices title character Rick and Morty, will be recast. Said Marie Moore, the senior vice president of communications at Warner Bros. Discovery, which owns Adult Swim. So there it is. So the shows will continue, but the fact that he voices the 2 main characters, but there are so many people out there that do Rick and Morty imitations. I think it will. We'll probably notice the difference. I mean, if you've got a good ear, you'll probably notice the difference, but they'll probably find somebody who could do as close to it as possible, unless they really want to get away from it and just and they can write it into the show. It's Harmon's humor, but Roiland makes the show. Well, it might end up bombing, but with the way the show works, the fact that every time they really screw up a planet, they go to another planet, it is possible they could go to a planet that says, Rick could have a throwaway line of, well, the hydrogen level in the air on this one is this percentage higher, so our voices are going to sound slightly different on this planet. Done deal. So we'll have to see how it all works out. But yeah, so it seems like they're breaking away from Roiland without necessarily breaking away from the show. We'll have to see how the fans respond to the changes and if they can keep up the quality and the cleverness of it. A lot of the writers for Rick and Morty have been brought into the MCU. So Ed says they can land in DC's Elseworld and save the DCEU. Yeah. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you. Mark says those were the good old days. Well, yeah, and Werpenstein says that the humor, but Harmon's humor, but Roiland makes the show. Well, like I said, they've been Marvel's been stealing from the Rick and Morty for a while now, writers. So obviously, it's more than just Roiland, or yeah, Justin will still get his checks for co-creating, and for the overall deal, he just won't be involved in making the show anymore. So, all right, quick check here. Yeah, JD, when the commercials aired, there was and you guys tell me if you saw it, there was a big chunk of just dead black space. So a commercial ran, and then one commercial ran, and then it was just dead air, and then the last commercial ran, and then you brought us back. Warpentine says, the show has run its course, in my opinion. It's good time for it to end. Possibly. You know, what's funny is I didn't really get into the show until recently. Saw some episodes. I just had never had a chance to watch it. What I've watched has been really clever. But again, it's not something but I know a lot of people who have come to it late and binged it and absolutely love it. So Warpentine says it's been happening lately, so it might be something we want to check into, JD. So, all right, let's go ahead and start talking. Ed says, I like the comic more than the show, so as long as the comic keeps going, I'm good. I've found the comics to be pretty funny. I've enjoyed those. We read them and cover them on in-stores this week. So, all right, we're going to talk a bit about Jason Momoa. If you guys don't know, there was a post and some comments he has said that's got some people scratching their heads in an odd way. But Mark says, for a future episode, can you do your review of Everything Everywhere at once? I can, as soon as I see it. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but as soon as I get a chance to see it, I will then do a review of it. So, Jason Momoa could cause some waves with this comment the other day, and then no, that wasn't meant to be an Aquaman pun, but it does work. Now, there's two areas. There was some things he said while exiting a meeting with Peter Safran and James Gunn, and he talked also about having met with David Zaslav, who's now the head of Warner Brothers, and of course Gunn and Safran are the head of DC Studios now. But then there was also some things he said during a film festival. So, he said, I love Gunn. And so there's going to be some really cool things. What they're doing was with DC, and it definitely will be in more than just one. There's room for me to play a couple different roles. I've seen other actors do it. Yeah, I want a shot. He also went on to say, we have a special relationship, referring to Gunn and Peter Safran. Now, Momoa and Safran have been working together for a while now. Safran is the producer on the Aquaman movies. And he says, I wish I could say more. I'll always be Aquaman. And there's a lot of evolution for that. So if I'm not going anywhere, and it's very exciting. He's also said he's not sure which Batman he's going to be is going to be in the upcoming Aquaman movie, because he's worked with both Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton on it. So originally, Keaton was going to be in it. Affleck was going to be in it, but Keaton was going to be Batman in it. I think Affleck was originally just going to be the Bruce Wayne part of it, giving the Flash a suit or something. But then they were flipping it, so Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was coming out before the Flash. So they reshot the stuff that Michael Keaton was going to do. And now it's flipped around again, so I don't know. He did guest on Peacemaker, and so he's worked with Gunn for a second. That's true. He has worked with Gunn on that. And so what does Momoa mean when he says there's room for me to play a couple different roles? Now, there has been a rumor going around that he might take on the role of Lobo. And he has come out and said how much he loves the character of Lobo, and that's recently. And he's kind of intimated that he would love to play Lobo. Now, how do we break all this down? The first thing we have to do is get a reality check. 2023 has 4 DC movies coming out. Shazam and the Fury of the Gods, Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman and the Lost City. Aquaman and the Lost City is coming out last, back all the way in December. So I think DC, Gunn, and Safran are going to be very cautious with some of the things they say. Now, they have said that they're not going forward with Ben Affleck as Batman or Henry Cavill as Superman. And that's pretty straightforward. But they haven't said what they're doing with Gal Gadot. Now, we know they're not going forward with Patty Jenkins' version of Wonder Woman 3. But they haven't said that Gal Gadot is out. And when that came out, that was reported, Gunn actually posted that that wasn't true. And that's his thing. He does kind of debunk stories. Ed says, have you heard they're planning to announce their 10-year plan? Didn't they say February 1st is next week? Yes. Gunn has said that they're going to announce. Now, they have a 10-year plan, but they're not going to announce all of it. They're going to announce the first part of it. Because it's going to be kind of like, from what I understand, it's going to be something to the effect of what like Kevin Feige does. When he comes out and, he's got the big board behind him and the big screen behind him, and we see all these movies laid out on a timeline going into like a year or two and a 3 year in advance, like we saw with the Phase 4, 5, and 6 announcements. So it's probably going to be something like that. We'll probably see a handful of titles with logos and whatnot going forward. So that's what I expect to see in the next few days. And that's the point I'm going to get to, Warpenstein. So, but the point I'm trying to make right now is they're not going to come out and say Jason Momoa is no longer Aquaman, because there's a movie they're going to try to hype, and they don't want people not to go because it's the end of him as Aquaman. Just like they're not going to say anything about, what's going on with Zachary Levi and Shazam or Ezra Miller in The Flash. They're going to ignore those questions, which they don't want to come out and say, yes, we're going forward with these characters. And then when they don't, they're not going to. But they also don't want to come out and say, we're not going forward with these characters when they have these big movies coming out. They think The Flash is going to be a great movie. They think, but it'd be really hard to move forward with Ezra Miller with everything that happened. Also, they do seem to want to close the door on everything Zack Snyder, but they have all these movies in the pipeline that they need to get out. So I think the rest of this year, we're going to hear some of the stuff. We're going to get little hints and whatnot, and we'll find out what's happening with certain actors that are no longer tied to future projects. Once we get past these movies, I think they'll be much more candid about it. Now, does that mean that Jason Momoa is no longer going to be Aquaman? I don't know. We don't have the answer to that. But could he be playing Lobo, and what would that mean? Well, Lobo is an interesting character. And I can see why James Gunn would want to get him out there. The first reason, of course, is that in a lot of ways, Lobo could be DC's version of Deadpool without being exactly like Deadpool. It can be R-rated, crass, the language, the fun, the silliness, the over-the-topness, but it can be all set in space. I think that's a great character to bring in. Now, let's see real quick. Mark says, if you were responsible for casting Lobo, what you got? I find it hard to find a name other than Jason. I agree. They did do a live action Jason a live action Lobo in the Krypton series, which didn't quite look right. He was acted well. The guy brought along the character well. So it's been done in live action, but Momoa just carries himself and looks like them. Ryan Hurst would be another person I would think of. Hurst coming from, I think, Sons of Anarchy. He actually voiced Lobo in one of the animated series, and visually he looks like him, but he's a little older. But there are some people I think could pull the role off, but Momoa has the name, the build, the voice, the look, everything you'd want. He'd be a perfect casting for Lobo. Now, Werpenstein says he's not familiar with Lobo. Lobo is a character that was created a long time ago and has changed quite a bit. So we really don't need to go into a deep dive. I might later on when we get a little more confirmation. But the basics is he is known as the last Caesaran. He is from a planet Caesar, and it's spelled C-Z-A-R, like Czar, Caesaran. And he is the last one. Now, he is the last one, unlike, say, Superman, who's the last son of Krypton because the planet blew up. Lobo is the last Caesaran because he killed all the others. He curses, he smokes a cigar, he rides through the spaceways on a motorcycle or a space-bearing motorcycle, and he's a bounty hunter. Tell me that doesn't sound like a great series right there. But the thing is that, I'm going to go back to what David Zaslav said. Zaslav has said that to him, DC is Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Now, does that mean we're only going to get Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman movies? No. I think we'll get other characters. But I think those characters, unless they have a big enough fan base, like a Green Lantern or a Flash, they're going to go through one of the big three first. And that's where I think it makes sense. And Jay's going to follow me on this one. There is an animated movie that came out with some really good artwork. It's when they rebooted the animated universe. This was the first one. It's called Superman, Man of Tomorrow. And this fits what James Gunn was talking about. This is a younger Superman. He is established working at, I think he's working at the Daily Bugle already. Not Daily Bugle, the Daily Planet. But he doesn't have the super suit yet. He doesn't know his own history. He doesn't know he's a Kryptonian. He knows he's from outer space, but not from where. You know, he got information from Ma and Pa Kent. You know, we found you in a crashed spaceship. We raised you. And unless they do this in some of the Superman stuff where he finds a crystal that explains everything to him. Yeah, lots of exposition. The way this handled it is basically somebody puts a bounty on the last Kryptonian and Lobo goes to collect. So while they fight, Lobo is basically telling Clark, look, you're from Kryptonian. You're not from around here. You're an alien. And you're a Kryptonian. They in the movie, they also introduce kryptonite, stuff like that. Now, the other characters in the movie, Lex Luthor shows up, but he's not the big bad. The big bad in it is Parasite. And that's a cool character that, see, the thing is, every time we see Superman, they go right to a Lex Luthor story. And I'm okay with Lex being the side character. Yeah, Jay, I agree. By the way, if you haven't seen this and you have HBO Max, it is on HBO Max. Superman, Man of Tomorrow. But Parasite is a good villain to start a franchise with because you could do big, you could do the shape shifting stuff like that. But you don't, it's a throwaway villain. It's your Ironmonger. It's your Laufey, and you can have Lex Luthor kind of manipulating things in the background without there being a showdown. Now, the other thing that it has is Martian Manhunter, which is another thing I love about this, because what you have are 3 aliens on Earth who are all the last of their race. John Jones is the last Martian, Clark is the last Kryptonian or Kal-El, and Lobo's the last Cesaran. And again, it's different because one's race died in a war, one died in an explosion, and the other killed them all. So a little different there, but in it you have the classic comic thing of 2 heroes going against each other, in this case an anti-hero, and then eventually having to work together and leaving amicably. That's what this movie has. So it has all those pieces, but if you think about it, if you do something like this, not only do you set up a new Superman, you introduce the new Lois, the new Perry White, the new Jimmy Olsen, the new Lex Luthor. You basically create Superman's world in Metropolis with this character. You don't have to worry about the origin story because it's not really the Left for Earth, growing up in Kansas stuff. You move past that, but you still have Clark discovering everything and kind of doing, like I said, he fights Lobo the first time and doesn't have his costume at that point. He's just wearing like an aviator helmet and goggles. And it's an interesting look with a flight jacket and stuff. Martian Manhunter was well done in Supergirl's CW show. He was very well done in the show and really well played too. David, man, his name just slipped my mind, but yeah, he was great as Martian Manhunter. And you introduce Superman's world, but you also introduce Lobo and Martian Manhunter, so that you then can spin characters out from there. Martian Manhunter is always kind of the backbone of the Justice League. So if you're going to build a Justice League, it's a good start, and I just, again, really, it's a really well done movie. And I could see, they show James Gunn posted a picture of All-Star Superman and everybody's like, oh my God, that's what he's using for the movie. I don't think he is. I think he may be looking at Man of Tomorrow and seeing how that works. And it's not going to be an adaptation of it because it's already a movie. But I could see those components being used. And I think introducing Lobo, and if they introduce Manhunter in here as well, you move forward with the Superman franchise and you have all the pieces in place, Ma and Pa Kent, just down the line, and you establish the new DCEU, but you also get to introduce 2 other major characters. And then Lobo could then spin off on his own, and Manhunter could be like the backbone character, the one that kind of flips in and out of other series, because he would make sense to flip in and out of other series, and you can switch him back and forth between human and Martian. There's a lot you can do with the character. So do I think Jason Momoa is going to be Lobo moving forward? Yeah, I do. I think this will be, I'm getting more and more, and this would be the wild ass speculation part. Has JD been sitting there on the button? No? Okay. I think all of the Snyderverse will end with Aquaman and the Lost City. All right, so I think they're going to close the door on the Snyderverse, and they need to. They really do, because they're not going to continue it. So they've made that decision. They need to make it a clean break, shut the door, and they could do it in such a way that would allow them to carry some things over, like Peacemaker. But overall, they need to close the door on it in a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of way. And I think they can do that with the Flash, but I think we're going to move forward with it. And I don't see them using Momoa as two different characters. I don't see him being Aquaman and Lobo. But with how excited he was in that video about his meeting, I don't think he would be that excited if he was coming out saying, "Oh, we're doing a third Aquaman movie." I don't think he'd be that excited. If anything, from knowing Momoa, or how I've heard of how Momoa is, I think he would be kind of upset that he was getting to move forward, but Ben and Henry weren't. Jay says he did screen test for Batman. I can't see Jason Momoa being Batman. It's just so against character. I can't see Batman with the long hair and stuff, and I don't see him cutting the hair. So maybe he would, but so yeah, I think he's going to be Lobo, and we're going to get a Superman movie with Lobo in it, and I think that's why we're getting those kind of rumors now, and we're getting that stuff because I think it's in discussion, and that's why he's excited, because he's going to go right from promoting Aquaman into probably filming for Superman that's going to have Lobo and stuff in it. And will they call it Man of Tomorrow? I don't see why not. Might not, because I don't think they're going to come out and say we're adapting this animated movie for film, but I think it could be the outline for it. And yeah. Isn't Momoa too pricey for Zaslav, though? He might be, but who would you cast as Martian Manhunter? They do tend to go with African American actors. There's some really good ones out there right now. Thinking about James Gunn, I kind of want to think about the guy who's currently playing he's going to play the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's already in Peacemaker universe. So maybe that. Actually, now that I think about it, that would be David Ramsey. Think about it's the guy who played in Peacemaker and is now playing the High Evolutionary. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I could see him playing Martian Manhunter, and it would make sense in the Peacemaker universe because that character dies. So John could take over his life, and he's part of law enforcement. So it would make a lot of sense. Chukwudi Iwuji, yeah. So knowing Gunn loves to reuse actors, and he did, yes, I think Chukwudi Iwuji would be right now my goal. And I am running long, aren't I? Okay, got to wrap it up here, guys. It's been fun. We will be back tomorrow. Right now, we're planning to talk about Critical Role tomorrow with Kyle's going to come on because he loves that show. But that's our plan. He hasn't been feeling well, so we'll see if that's going to happen. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Stick around for Comics Collectibles with Rex and John, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have a great night.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR